Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Chrysalis Effect. I hope everyone is doing well, and I thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who don't know who I am Monique at Triumph Services, your host, and here in the Chrysalis Effect, we are transforming mind, money, and manifestations. And today, we're going to speak on the topic, or I am going to speak on the topic of the Great Deception. The Great Deception. However, before I get started, I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share. Share this out to 3 people. And also leave me a comment. Leave me a comment. I would love to see and respond to your comments. Thank you so much in advance. Now, as the title says, today we're going to speak about, or I am going to speak about, the Great Deception. Now, what do I mean? Well, lately, I don't know about you, but it seems like wherever I go, I am hearing or reading about a suicide. It seems to be every single day. You have Regina King's son, a few days after his 26th birthday. Kate Myers, a 22-year-old from Stanford University, the team captain of her school's women's soccer team, known for helping them win a championship. Zoe Bethel, Miss Alabama and political commentator. She was only 27. You have Chelsea Christ, former Miss USA, an attorney, an extra correspondent. Only 30 years old. But it's just not the young people. Also, look at Peter Robbins. We lost Peter Robbins, the voice of Charlie Brown, at age 65. Also, there was social media influencer Lee McMillan at age 27. People that seem to have it all together and have everything you could ever want according to the world standards. Yet, there was something missing. They weren't happy. According to the CDC and the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 12th leading cause of death in the United States. In 2020 alone, 45,975 Americans died by suicide, with an estimated 1.2 million attempts. That's a lot. That's a lot. We're missing something here. On average, there are 130 suicides per day. And over 90% of adults have reported that they have considered it. Depression is real. Mental health is real. We have got to change the conversation and the misconceptions and stigmas and perceptions around mental health. Because there are people out there who are struggling. Our society has created such a culture of a facade. And, I blame social media for that and the internet for that, because you can put whatever out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that's true. But in this age of social media, of Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, all these things, people some get confused that for reality. Everything that glitters isn't gold. Just because someone looks happy on the outside doesn't mean it is so. Because here's the truth. Here's the truth of the matter. Everyone makes mistakes. No one is happy all the time. We all go through struggles. It doesn't matter who's your parents. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much prestige you have, how many likes, followers, hearts that you get. We all go through something at some time. And I was thinking about this and that I need to sit my young one down and we need to have a conversation. And not just even her, but even her brother, 34, because it's an ongoing conversation, correct? That you are going to encounter some things in this life. We all go through something, but nothing is insurmountable. You go through something, we all make mistakes. We're not God, we're not Jesus. We all go through it, make mistakes. And ideally, you learn from that mistake and you determine to do better the next time, realizing that it's not the end. But what I'm seeing is people are worrying too much about whether people think of them or they're comparing themselves too much to others. Like I said, you're only seeing what those others, quote unquote, want you to see. You're not seeing the full story. That's the deception, or one of the deceptions. What might seem fun, colorful, adventurous, etc., is all curated. It's not the full story. And we start to lose our faith when we focus on ourself, or when we place our faith in ourselves, our experiences, our circumstances, and our surroundings. And that will slowly eat away at what you fundamentally know to be true. We can be deceived into believing that there is no hope, that nothing will ever change. But here's the thing, change is the way of life. Nothing stays the same. Yeah, the saying goes, nothing changes until you change it, but that's not true. The world and life are constantly changing. And we can only impact the degree and the direction of that change. So, that being so, the logical conclusion is yes, it will change. The belief that there is no hope can't be true because there's always change. Hope is that feeling of expectation and desire for something to happen or that certain thing. Merriam-Webster puts it this way, it's a desire accompanied by expectation of or belief in fulfillment. So when you say there's no hope, that's a deception. Because saying there is no hope, saying there is no change, things won't change. Things always are changing. Now, consider this. This is a faith-based show, so let me just take it there for a second. Eve was deceived in giving up something that was already hers. The devil told Eve that eating of the tree of knowledge would make her like God, knowing good and evil. Here's the thing. There were two trees in the midst of the garden, the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. The tree of life, immortality. Eve was not banned from eating of the tree of life. So to be like God, to have that immortality was already hers. She was already like God. And God didn't say that she couldn't eat of that tree. He said the tree of knowledge. You see where I'm going with this? And he didn't say that she couldn't touch it. which is what was said in the conversation with the serpent. God never said that. He said you can't eat of the tree of knowledge. Now, isn't that just like people? Isn't it just like people to change things up in the retelling and the retelling and the retelling? God's words were exactly, you may surely eat of every tree in the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you will eat of it, you will surely die. Hence, you can eat of the tree of immortality. See, what was being attacked was something that she already had. And I submit to you that that's the devil's trick. His trick is the deception. What is being attacked is something that you already have. If your mind is attacked, it's because you have a sound mind. If you're struggling in your finances, it's because there's financial breakthrough. That is because financial breakthrough is your portion. If your relationship fell apart, God has another superseding one on the horizon. The world, life, these circumstances are always changing. But we are being led astray by deceit. We are deceived by this notion that we must achieve all these things. We must look a certain way, talk a certain way, amass a certain level of money to be happy, to be fulfilled. You know, I remember this one time. A fellow nurse came up to me one day and said, "Why do you still practice nursing? You could be out there making loads of money, have a fancy house, nice cars, never work a weekend, 12, 16-hour shifts, holidays, etc. Why do you do it?" Well, my response was multifold. A, how do you know I don't have those things? B, because I can. I have choices. C, because my priorities and my values are my family. D, what gives you the right to question my decisions about my own life? That's just me. Of course, I had to bring that up. Why do you think it is your business? And E, because in order to do what I do and to do well, I have to be up to date on the standards and of care, of best practices in this field. Yeah, I could go out there and check off all her boxes, but still not be happy and content and in alignment with my core values. It would please her and people like her, those who think like her. But what about me? I was and am exactly where God purposed me to be, doing the things that He purposed me to do. And I submit to you, you were not created to satisfy people. You were created and purposed to satisfy God. Because remember, and you know, before I even go there, that might not look the same. Because what people value and what God values are two different things. You have to do and live your life in alignment with your own core values. And how that looks is going to be different for each one of us. Now, we talked about hope versus hopelessness and that expectation. I want to remind you that God works backwards. And sometimes we must get through or go through to get through. Now, what do I mean by that? Growth comes from experience, pain, and just work. If everything was handed to us on a silver platter, we would not appreciate it. So growth comes from struggle. And yes, the struggle makes you stronger. It is true. But it does not necessarily feel good. Most of the times it doesn't feel good. Let's be honest. I remember when I was going through my health crisis. I think I talked about it before, but I had been diagnosed with a brain tumor in the middle of my grand plan of, my path of being a lawyer, in the middle of my superior court clerkship. But that health crisis gave me the experience I needed to understand the process of going through that, so that I can empathize with others that are similarly situated, so that I can relate to the impact that such crises have on your self-esteem, the way you view yourself, relationships, career, finances, a whole slew of things. I needed to go through that so that I can share my journey and help someone who is on that same journey. I can say, you are not alone with certainty now. Yes, I felt alone when I was going through it, but I wasn't. It prepared me. It positioned me. And that is just one example. Everyone goes through something at some time. I could take you back even further. Let's go back. 1 Samuel 31:4 talks about Saul and the men of Israel fighting the Philistines. Now, the Philistines killed his son, wounded Saul, and they were pressing in on him. Saul asked his armor bearer to kill him to avoid being tortured and killed. His armor bearer refused. So Saul fell on his own sword to avoid not only mistreatment, but also the shame of being killed by the quote unquote uncircumcised, and to avoid that sense of failure. 2 Samuel 17:23. And I always mess up these names, so forgive me. Ahithophel, I believe, hung himself. Hushai refused his counsel to Absalom and the elders to kill King David. Absalom felt that Hushai gave better counsel. So being bitter, having suffered humiliation and rejection, he went home and he hung himself. The word says he got his house in order, and then he hung himself. And we all know the story of Judas, the disciple chosen by Jesus, who betrayed him for pieces of silver, who hung himself. These things are not new. But you know the theme that runs throughout all of them? Deception. Deception. We are in a 24-hour, 365-day mind battle. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness, in high places. Your mind is a battleground. Every action and inaction starts with a thought. Psalms 139:3 says, you discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. So even though it seems at times we are not alone. God sees all and hears all. He sees you. He sees me. He sees our hearts. He sees our situations. He sees our hurts. He sees our losses. He sees our frustrations. He sees our betrayals. And through it all, He promises that He will give us His rest at the appropriate time. He brings us to an expected end, for He knows the plans He has for us, plans for hope and a future and not to harm us. He knows where you are at any moment. Your path has already been charted out for you, if you continue to walk it. And see, you now have to walk it alone. He's given us the Holy Spirit to guide us on that path. The Holy Spirit makes our crooked ways straight. It's that intuition. If you ask me, what does that feel like? What is that? It's that intuition, that instinct that pushes you to the left or to the right, ahead, or tells you, whoop, whoop, stand still. Flow with it. Flow with it. Not on impulse, but flow with it. And when you think of flow, I think of a creek. And just like a bubbling brook that has little rocks in it, obstacles may come up. But just like the water, flow right on by them. God promises guidance into a place of peace at the appropriate time. Don't be deceived in thinking that something is insurmountable. Don't be deceived like Eve into giving up your power. Eve's power wasn't taken from her. She was deceived into handing it over. Take a look at Hagar. If you know the story of Hagar, Hagar was the servant of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Sarah, of course, was up there in years and unable to have a child. So she sent her husband into her servant. And then her servant became pregnant. And Sarah developed such contempt for her and she treated her badly that Hagar fled. Conditions were so bad, she fled. And on her journey, God appeared to her and directed her to return. He directed her back into that situation. But He promised her that He will multiply her offspring so much that they could not be numbered. And He did. Hagar says in Genesis 16:13, she says, "You are a God. You saw me," basically. What kind of God is this who comes to see about me? God is looking out for you. He is looking after you, even in those moments. He hasn't forgotten you. We are looking at things from the wrong direction. We're looking at things face on, when God is looking at them from the ending to the beginning. Your hope is in the expected end. Don't be deceived into thinking that you have no right to feel expectation or desire something to happen of that certain thing. It is your right, and it always has been. You have a desire accompanied by an expectation of or belief in fulfillment. Why? Because it's already yours. It's already yours. Do not relinquish it. Do not hand over your power. Wrestle. Fight against the lie, against the Great Deception. You have power, authority, are loved, and possess a sound mind. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I hope that this has helped someone. Again, I want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe. Share this out to 3 people and leave me a comment. Share your thoughts with me, and I will certainly respond. If you want to connect with me, I want to encourage you to do so. You can connect with me on all my social media channels at Triumph SVCS. Again, that is Triumph SVCS, or on my website at www.triumphsvcs.com. If you want to book a connection call with me, you can also book a free connection call with me at bit.ly/evertransform. Again, it's bit.ly/evertransform. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Have an awesome weekend, and I will see you back here, right here in the Chrysalis Effect. Bye-bye now.